The rusty iron gates groaned a protest as I pushed them open, a sound swallowed by the vast, oppressive silence of what was once Wonderland Grove. The sign, once vibrant and welcoming, was now a faded, peeling relic, half obscured by an overgrown vine. Rain had streaked trails down the painted letters, making them look like weeping eyes. I'd seen the online ad, caretaker for private property, overnight hours, isolated location, generous compensation. Isolated was an understatement. This place was a ghost town, a monument to forgotten laughter. I'd worked plenty of odd jobs in my life. Night watchman for abandoned warehouses, security for construction sites, even a brief, ill-fated stint as a hotel desk clerk on the graveyard shift. I liked the quiet, the solitude of the late hours. But this was different. This wasn't just quiet, it was dead. The kind of silence that hummed with a forgotten energy, a melancholic echo of screams and cheers. The owner, a reclusive woman named Eleanor Thorne who only communicated through an ancient email address, had given me simple instructions. Patrol the grounds hourly, check the main attractions, and report any significant changes. No mention of broken windows or structural integrity, just changes. The pay, as advertised, was suspiciously good. Too good. But my landlord wasn't interested in my suspicions, only my rent. My beat-up pickup truck rattled down the cracked asphalt path, past skeletal trees and overgrown flower beds. The main parking lot was a concrete desert, weeds cracking through the surface like defiant green veins. Ahead, the park sprawled out, a landscape of faded primary colors and twisted metal. A Ferris wheel, its carriages swaying gently in a phantom breeze, loomed like a giant broken clock against the bruised twilight sky. Further in, the skeletal remains of roller coasters snaked across the landscape, their tracks glinting dully. I parked near a small cinder-block building marked Maintenance Office. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth, rust, and something else. Something sickly sweet and cloying, like old cotton candy left out in the rain. A shiver ran down my spine despite the muggy summer air. The office itself was dusty and cramped, filled with tools I barely recognized, and a small flickering fluorescent light that hummed like a trapped bee. A single ancient monitor sat on a metal desk, displaying grainy black and white feeds from strategically placed cameras around the park. There was no real security system, just these few static points. Just check the cameras every hour, do your rounds, nothing out of the ordinary, Ms. Thorne's email had stated. It felt too vague, too unconcerned for a place this size. What was I really supposed to be looking for? I settled into a creaking office chair, the silence pressing in. Outside, the last sliver of twilight bled from the sky, plunging the park into deeper shadow. The Ferris wheel was now a black silhouette, its spokes reaching like bony fingers into the darkening heavens. It was almost 11 p.m. when I started my first patrol. I had a heavy-duty flashlight and a flimsy map of the park that looked like it had been drawn by a child. The main pathway, once bustling with families, was now a crumbling ribbon of asphalt. Ghostly benches lined its sides, their paint chipped, their wood rotting. My boots crunched on loose gravel as I walked, the sound amplified in the stillness. The first few attractions I passed were harmless enough. A carousel, its painted horses frozen mid-gallop, their eyes staring blankly into the darkness. A deflated bouncy castle resembling a flattened monster, and a row of target practice games, their smiling clown faces now cracked and peeling, making them look more menacing than mirthful. As I approached the Ferris wheel, the wind picked up slightly, making the empty carriages sway with a soft metallic creak. It sounded like a mournful sigh. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating patches of rust and faded paint. I paused beneath it, feeling dwarfed by its decaying grandeur. It felt watched. Then I saw it. A single balloon, bright red, tied to the railing of one of the lowest carriages. It bobbed gently, incongruously vibrant against the grimy steel. It couldn't have been there when I arrived. The gate had been secured. No one else was supposed to be here. My heart gave a little jolt. Had Eleanor forgotten to mention another employee? A groundskeeper, maybe? I called out, my voice swallowed by the vastness of the park. Hello? Anyone here? Only the sighing of the Ferris wheel answered. I walked closer, my flashlight beam fixed on the balloon. As I got within a few feet, a sudden, sharp gust of wind ripped through the park, tearing the balloon from its mooring. It soared upwards, a bright spot against the night sky until it was lost in the darkness. I stood there for a long moment, the hair on my arms prickling. It was just a balloon, the wind, nothing more. But the unnerving thought that it had appeared out of nowhere, only to vanish as I approached, settled a cold weight in my stomach. I continued my patrol, trying to shake off the unease. Next was the Tunnel of Love, a dark, dilapidated structure that resembled a cavernous mouth. The small heart-shaped boats were half submerged in stagnant, murky water, their faded velvet seats teeming with spiders. I shone my light into the opening, a wave of stale, damp air washing over me. It smelled of decay and something sickly sweet again. As the beam pierced the darkness, I heard it. A faint splash, like something had shifted in the water inside. I held my breath, listening, nothing. Just the drip of water from a leaky ceiling. My nerves were getting the better of me. I decided to move on. But as I turned, a glint of metal caught my eye just outside the tunnel's entrance. Half buried in the tall grass was a small, tarnished brass plaque. I knelt, scraping away the dirt with my fingers. The inscription was faint but legible. "Welcome, little ones, to Wonderland Grove. Remember, the happiest memories are the ones you keep to yourself. Some things are best left untouched." My brows furrowed. It was an odd sentiment for an amusement park, even a defunct one. What did it mean, some things are best left untouched? I felt an urge to investigate the Tunnel of Love further, but a stronger, more primal instinct screamed at me to get back to the relative safety of the maintenance office. This place was messing with my head. I quickened my pace, my flashlight beam dancing nervously ahead of me. The walk back felt longer, the silence heavier. Every shadow seemed to writhe. Every distant creak sounded like footsteps. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see that red balloon floating behind me, or perhaps something worse. When I finally reached the maintenance office, I practically stumbled inside, slamming the flimsy door shut behind me. I leaned against it for a moment, breathing heavily, trying to calm my racing pulse. This wasn't just isolated. This was something else. I checked my watch, 12:45 a.m. I'd been out there for over an hour, too long maybe. The memory of the balloon and the strange plaque gnawed at me. I needed to know if this was standard. I pulled out my phone, the screen a beacon of blue light in the dark office, and typed out an email to Eleanor Thorne. Subject: query about park operations body. Ms. Thorne, I've just completed my first patrol. I noticed a red balloon near the Ferris wheel that appeared to be recently placed, and a strange plaque near the Tunnel of Love. Is there a groundskeeper or any other staff working at night I should be aware of? Also, could you clarify what changes I should be looking for? The park feels very still, thank you. Mark Jensen. I hit send, the email vanishing into the digital ether. Almost immediately, a reply popped up. My eyes widened. That was fast. Too fast. Subject: query about park operations body. Mr. Jensen, your questions are unnecessary. Do not concern yourself with what you see or what you think you see. You are there to observe. If you feel compelled to investigate further, be advised. There are certain rules that must be followed if you wish to see the sunrise. I have attached them. You will find that some things in Wonderland Grove are better left undisturbed. Continue your duties. Regards, Eleanor Thorne. My blood ran cold. The tone was sharp, dismissive, almost menacing, and the attachment. I clicked on it, my finger trembling. A PDF opened, displaying a stark black-on-white list. Wonderland Grove. Overnight caretaker protocols rule. 1. Always maintain a consistent patrol schedule. Deviations are noted. Rule 2. Do not approach the Ferris wheel after 1 a.m. if its carriages are moving when there is no wind. Do not look up at the highest carriage. Rule 3. If you hear music from the carousel after midnight, do not investigate. It is not playing for you. Rule 4. The funhouse mirrors can show you things. Do not look into them directly between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. If you see your reflection distorted in a way that is not possible, leave the funhouse immediately. Rule 5. The smell of fresh popcorn or cotton candy means a new performance is about to begin. Do not seek it out. Rule 6. If you hear children's laughter when no children are present, do not acknowledge it. Do not attempt to locate the source. Rule 7. The Tunnel of Love leads to places beyond this park. Do not enter it after dark. If the water inside appears to glow, retreat immediately. Rule 8. If you find a lost item, a toy, a shoe, a piece of clothing, that wasn't there on your previous patrol, leave it. Do not touch it. Rule 9. Between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., if you hear a faint scratching at the office door, do not open it. Do not look through the peephole. Pretend you are not there. Rule 10. Under no circumstances should you leave the park before 6 a.m. Doing so will ensure you become a permanent attraction. I stared at the list, my heart hammering against my ribs. This wasn't a joke. This was real. These were concrete, specific, and utterly terrifying. Permanent attraction? What the hell did that mean? The chill from earlier deepened, spreading through my bones. I had to survive this night. It was almost 1:30 a.m. My next patrol was due. I debated staying in the office, but Rule 1 echoed in my head. Deviations are noted. By whom, Eleanor or something else? I reluctantly grabbed my flashlight and pushed open the door, stepping back into the oppressive silence of Wonderland Grove. The night felt colder, darker. Every rustle of leaves, every distant creak seemed amplified, pressing in on me. I kept my flashlight beam low, scanning the ground, trying to avoid looking up, especially at the Ferris wheel, which now felt like a lurking predator. As I approached the main plaza, a faint, tinny music drifted on the air. My blood ran cold. The carousel. Rule 3. If you hear music from the carousel after midnight, do not investigate. It is not playing for you. The music was a warped, distorted rendition of a calliope tune, thin and reedy, like it was coming from an ancient, broken music box. It was barely audible but unmistakable. Each note felt like a tiny frozen needle pricking my skin. My eyes darted towards the carousel, a large, ornate structure shrouded in shadow. I could just make out the outlines of the horses, their bodies still, their painted smiles frozen. But the music, it was undeniably there. I forced myself to keep walking, my gaze fixed straight ahead, away from the source of the sound. My footsteps picked up speed, the gravel crunching loudly beneath my boots. A desperate attempt to drown out the spectral melody. The music seemed to follow me, a phantom echo in the vast emptiness. It sounded like it was playing directly behind me, then beside me, then ahead, surrounding me in a maddening symphony of dread. I could almost hear the faint whirring of the carousel's mechanism, the phantom laughter of children carried on the twisted notes. I gripped my flashlight so tightly my knuckles ached. It is not playing for you. The words reverberated in my mind. I didn't want to know who it was playing for. I finally managed to put some distance between myself and the music, the sound fading into a faint, lingering hum. My heart pounded, a frantic drum against my ribs. I paused, taking a ragged breath. The silence that returned was almost as unnerving as the music, a suffocating vacuum. Then a new smell hit me. Sweet, undeniably familiar fresh popcorn. My stomach twisted. Rule 5. The smell of fresh popcorn or cotton candy means a new performance is about to begin. Do not seek it out. The aroma was strong, distinct, cutting through the damp, musty air of the park. It was coming from the direction of the old concession stands, near the entrance of the dilapidated funhouse. A strange, almost magnetic pull urged me to investigate, to see what kind of performance could possibly be happening in a deserted amusement park. But the memory of the music and the chilling finality of Ms. Thorne's rules held me rooted to the spot. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that seeking out this performance would be a catastrophic mistake. I started moving again, deliberately steering my path away from the tantalizing scent. My heart was still racing from the encounter with the carousel's music, and now this. Wonderland Grove wasn't just old and abandoned, it was active, and it was playing a very dangerous game. I hurried past the funhouse, its distorted, smiling entrance looming in the darkness. I could feel a chill emanating from its depths, a feeling of eyes watching me. I kept my head down, avoiding the main entrance, remembering Rule 4. The funhouse mirrors can show you things. Do not look into them directly between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. It wasn't 2 a.m. yet, but I wasn't going to take any chances. As I made my way towards the back of the park, intending to cut through a less frequented area to reach the maintenance office, I heard it again. A different sound this time. Faint, distant but unmistakable, children's laughter. My breath hitched. Rule 6. If you hear children's laughter when no children are present, do not acknowledge it. Do not attempt to locate the source. The laughter was light, innocent, full of joy, utterly out of place in this decaying nightmare. It drifted on the wind, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the kind of sound that would normally bring a smile to your face. But here, in the heart of the abandoned park, it was chilling. It sounded like a memory, trapped and replaying, or something far, far worse. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, then opened them, forcing myself to walk steadily. I felt a desperate urge to run, to sprint back to the office and lock myself in. But I knew I couldn't break Rule 1. I had to continue my patrol, even if every fiber of my being screamed for escape. The laughter persisted, sometimes sounding closer, sometimes further away, as if unseen children were playing a macabre game of tag around me. It was maddeningly disorienting. I tried to focus on the crunch of my boots, on the beam of my flashlight, anything to drown out the joyous, terrifying sound. I felt a sudden, inexplicable cold spot near my right ear, like someone had whispered a secret directly into my head. I flinched, almost dropping my flashlight. The laughter seemed to swell then, just for a moment, closer than before. A burst of delighted giggles. I imagined tiny invisible hands tugging at my pant leg, phantom whispers caressing my face. I grit my teeth, forcing myself to push past the phantom presence, refusing to acknowledge it. I quickened my pace, my heart hammering. Just keep walking, don't look, don't listen. The laughter slowly began to fade, becoming fainter, more ethereal, until finally, it was gone, leaving behind only the profound, unsettling silence of Wonderland Grove. I let out a shaky breath, the cold sweat clinging to my skin. Each passing hour of this shift was a battle, a test of my sanity against the park's insidious influence. I checked my watch, 2:37 a.m. The funhouse, I had to be careful. The closest path back to the office would take me directly past it. I veered off, trying to take a wide berth, cutting through a patch of overgrown weeds and discarded debris. It was slower, more treacherous, but safer than risking a direct encounter with those mirrors. As I navigated the rough terrain, my flashlight beam swept over a pile of broken plastic and rusted metal. A flash of bright color caught my eye. Lying amidst the rubble was a child's shoe, small, bright blue with a single untied shoelace. It looked brand new, almost as if it had just been dropped. My stomach clenched. Rule 8. If you find a lost item, a toy, a shoe, a piece of clothing that wasn't there on your previous patrol, leave it. Do not touch it. I stopped dead, staring at the shoe. It hadn't been there on my first patrol. I was sure of it. An irrational urge to pick it up, to see if there was a name inside, to try and return it, flooded me. It felt so real, so innocent, so out of place. But the rule, the cold, unyielding rule. I forced myself to walk past it, my eyes fixed firmly ahead, not daring to glance back. The air around the shoe seemed to shimmer, a faint, almost imperceptible distortion. I finally reached the maintenance office, stumbling inside, feeling a profound sense of exhaustion settle over me. My entire body ached, my nerves were frayed, and my mind felt like it was playing tricks on me. I collapsed into the chair, the old monitor flickering silently, displaying its grainy feeds of empty pathways and still attractions. It was almost 3 a.m. I had broken no rules on this patrol, though I had come dangerously close to breaking several, and the park had made sure I knew it. The carousel, the popcorn smell, the laughter, the shoe, each a deliberate test, a taunt from whatever intelligence permeated Wonderland Grove. I pulled out my phone again, a desperate need for contact, for proof of the outside world. No signal, of course. Eleanor clearly wanted me isolated. I stared at the time on my watch, 3:05 a.m. Just a few more hours. I could do this, I had to. The next hour was a tense, silent vigil. I kept my eyes glued to the monitor, flipping through the sparse camera feeds, half expecting to see a child laughing on the carousel or a shadowy figure by the Ferris wheel, but nothing. The park was still, utterly desolate, a picture of forgotten tranquility on the screen. The calm was more unsettling than the activity. It felt like the park was biding its time, recharging, waiting for the next moment to strike. My eyes kept drifting to the clock. 3:50 a.m., almost time for Rule 9. That was the one that truly terrified me. Between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., if you hear a faint scratching at the office door, do not open it. Do not look through the peephole. Pretend you are not there. What could be scratching at the door? Animal or something else? The thought made my skin crawl. This was the most vulnerable I would be. Trapped, isolated, with only a flimsy door between me and whatever the park chose to send. I turned off the flickering fluorescent light, plunging the small office into near darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of the monitor. I leaned back in the chair, trying to make myself as still and silent as possible, as if my very breath could betray my presence. My hand hovered over the door handle, an irrational urge to brace it, to barricade it, warring with the knowledge that it would likely be futile. The clock on my watch ticked past 4 a.m. The silence in the office was absolute, thick and heavy. Every minute stretched into an eternity. I held my breath, listening, straining my ears for the faintest sound. Then it started. A soft, almost imperceptible scratching, coming from the other side of the door. It sounded like fingernails, long and sharp, dragging lightly across the wood, then scraping gently at the metal doorknob. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. It was so faint at first I almost convinced myself it was the old security office settling, or a trick of my frayed nerves. But then it grew louder, more insistent. The scratching became a rhythmic, deliberate sound. like something was patiently trying to get in. It wasn't an animal. It was too precise, too knowing. My eyes were glued to the door, though I knew I shouldn't be looking. I imagined long, skeletal fingers, scraping away at the wood, trying to find a purchase. I squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them again, willing the sound to stop. But it continued, relentless. Then a new sound joined. It wasn't human. It was deep, rasping, like something struggling to breathe. Or perhaps something in immense pain. It emanated from directly outside the door, chilling me to the bone. The scratching continued its dreadful rhythm. I pressed myself further back into the chair, trying to become one with the shadows. Pretend you were not there. That's what the rule said. My breathing was shallow, barely there. I could feel the cold radiating from the door, even through the wood. The moaning intensified, becoming a low, sorrowful wail that vibrated through the floorboards. The scratching grew frantic, clawing at the door as if whatever was outside was growing impatient, its patience wearing thin. I could almost feel the weight of its presence, pressing against the door, trying to force its way in. Suddenly, a loud thump against the door, like something heavy had thrown itself against it. The entire frame rattled, and a thin crack appeared in the plaster near the top. My breath caught in my throat. Another thump, harder this time. The door bowed inward slightly. I knew, with terrifying certainty, that if it got in, I wouldn't survive. I squeezed my eyes shut, burying my face in my hands, trying to block out the sounds, the cold, the fear. My mind screamed at me to run, to fight, but my body was frozen, paralyzed by terror. The thumping continued for what felt like an eternity, each impact rattling the flimsy structure, each moan a direct assault on my sanity. I kept my eyes closed, picturing the cold, dead stillness of the park, anything to distract myself from the horror pressing against the door. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, it stopped. Silence. The sudden absence of sound was almost as jarring as its presence. I slowly, cautiously lifted my head, my eyes darting to my watch. 4:31 a.m. It was over. I let out a shaky breath, a whimper escaping my lips. My entire body was trembling uncontrollably, sweat plastering my shirt to my back. I felt utterly drained, as if the last half hour had stolen years from my life. I couldn't move from the chair, just stared at the door, half expecting the scraping to resume, or for a spectral form to materialize through the wood. The rest of the night passed in a suffocating quiet. I didn't dare move, didn't dare even glance at the monitors again. I sat there, a prisoner in the maintenance office, waiting for the first hint of dawn, for the promised freedom of 6 a.m. Each minute crawled by, an agonizing stretch of silence and lingering dread. The air in the small room felt heavy, stagnant, imbued with the echoes of the scratching and moaning. I kept my eyes fixed on the cracked plaster above the door, a chilling reminder of the presence that had pressed against it. My mind replayed the events of the night, the red balloon, the carousel's music, the scent of popcorn, the children's laughter, the blue shoe, and finally, the relentless assault on the door. Wonderland Grove wasn't just abandoned. It was alive, and it was malicious. Finally, a faint, almost imperceptible lightning outside the grimy window of the office. A pale, bruised gray began to displace the inky black of the night sky. Hope, a fragile, trembling thing, began to stir within me. I glanced at my watch. 5:58 a.m., 2 more minutes. My heart began to pound with a different kind of rhythm now. Anticipation, pure, unadulterated relief. I pushed myself up from the chair, my muscles stiff and protesting. I grabbed my flashlight, my keys, and my tattered map, ready to bolt the second the clock hit 6 a.m. I stood by the door, my hand hovering over the cold metal handle, poised for escape. I could almost taste the fresh morning air, the promise of sunlight and safety. Then, a faint metallic clang echoed from somewhere deep within the park. It sounded like gears grinding, heavy machinery stirring to life. My blood ran cold. The roller coaster. My eyes darted to the monitor. One of the feeds was focused on the biggest coaster, the Serpent's Coil. As I watched, mesmerized by a fresh wave of dread, the train, a line of empty, faded carriages, began to move. Slowly at first, then gaining speed, it climbed the massive rusted lift hill, its chain clanking loudly, an unnatural, rhythmic groan in the dawning light. It reached the peak, paused for a terrifying moment, silhouetted against the pale sky, and then plunged down the first drop with a sickening whoosh of displaced air. The sound echoed through the park, a phantom scream of invisible riders. It twisted through the loops and turns, the empty carriages rattling, a macabre ballet of steel and decay. My eyes darted to my watch, 5 The coaster completed its circuit, slowing to a halt at the loading station. But as it stopped, I saw something. In the front carriage, perfectly still, was a single, small figure. It looked like a child, hunched over, its back to the camera. It was wearing a bright blue shoe on one foot. My breath hitched, the shoe, the one I had seen earlier. And then, as if sensing my gaze, the figure in the coaster carriage slowly, stiffly, began to turn its head. I didn't wait. I wrenched the door open, practically tearing it from its hinges, and burst out of the maintenance office. I didn't care about the schedule, about Ms. Thorne, about anything. All that mattered was Rule 10. Under no circumstances should you leave the park before 6 a.m. Doing so will ensure you become a permanent attraction. It was 6 a.m., I was free.